Welcome to the return of the Primal Endurance Podcast. This is your host, Brad Kearns, and we are going on a journey to a kinder, gentler, smarter, more fun, more effective way to train for ambitious endurance goals. Visit primalendurance.fit to join the community and enroll in our free video course. Get ready for a very high energy human by the name of Peter Park. He is a highly regarded personal trainer. He's a legend in the fitness industry, having worked with many professional athletes and Hollywood celebrities, and also known for hanging with Lance Armstrong and getting him doing some good work in the gym during his Tour de France days. He has a great facility in the beautiful Santa Barbara area called Platinum Fitness, and his background is really interesting. So we're going to have a wide-ranging discussion of how he came to be this very enthusiastic and passionate trainer, and you're going to love how this comes out in his voice and his discussions of his lifelong dedication to getting people fit and healthy and performing at their peak, including young athletes, including business leaders, and including the Hollywood types. But Peter is both an extreme endurance athlete and also has an interesting background in powerlifting. And he talks about how he went from 200-pound Rip City strong guy to total immersion into the Ironman scene. And we crossed paths a little bit in the Santa Barbara area when I was there in school and a little bit after training as a pro triathlete, and he was coming up. And man, this guy was just a legendary trainer. The stories that people told around town that no one could keep up with this guy's work ethic, and you're going to hear about some of his reminiscing about the amazing workouts, riding his bike, down the California coast and just training for hours and hours. He completed 23 Ironman triathlons in his career. So he's been to the very edge of peak performance and explored the limits of human endurance. When you think about it, he's probably exercised and trained at a level that few other humans have in the history of the world, because he still maintains a very ambitious training schedule in the gym. And you'll hear him describe over the course of the show all the fun stuff that he likes to do with sprinting and hill sprints. He was also a competitive volleyball player in college. And this extreme training stuff didn't even take hold until, let's say, the 80s, perhaps, right? There wasn't that much going on before that, the advent of triathlon and ultra running and so forth. So you are going to hear from someone who has experience in all different levels of athletic training, all different types, and has brought it all together to form his philosophy that he dispenses at Platinum Fitness. I think you're going to have a lot of fun. We talk about the great performances of the Norwegian triathletes today, which we're both fascinated with. And that brings up the topic of energy balance. Peter's experimented with so many different diets, and so we talk about this ideal of being fully fueled to lead a healthy, active, energetic lifestyle. And this guy is doing it like nobody else. He's in the gym all day long, caring for clients, getting his training in. We're both the same age, 57. He's a tremendous inspiration. Here we go with the show. Peter Park. Peter Park, connecting from maybe the nicest, most amazing city in the world, Santa Barbara. You're the local hero, man. You've been there forever.
Forever. Yeah, I don't see myself leaving either.
And the Platinum Fitness facility, the beautiful website, you can see what's going on there. And we'll talk all about the innovative training strategies that you've developed and implement to your clients. But I think we should start with your amazing endurance career. That's where we connected way back when I was training in Santa Barbara. We crossed paths a little bit. You were too tough for me, so I had to go away with my tail between my legs. But this is 23 Ironmans? That's what you
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, that's like up there. I don't think there's too many people that have done that many. Ken Glaw did 30 in a row in Ironman Hawaii, but that's a lot of medals, man. Yeah, he did 30 in a row.
Yeah. I'm not 30 Iron. I mean, not Hawaii's, but
total.
But,
most people do 1 or 2 or 3 or 12 if they're really long term. But that was a grind. What was that all about? How'd you get into it?
It's funny because I started out as a volleyball player, which is funny. I got a scholarship out of high school to play volleyball. So that's where I started in that world. I mean, from the time I was 10, I was obsessed with beach volleyball, indoor and whatever. So I played there I actually went to University of Hawaii my first 2 years. And then I quit. They didn't have a libero. That's this position where like you can be short and play back row and serve. They didn't have that back then. So I was a setter, but I couldn't. I was just in the front row. I just couldn't block. I was just, I was like, they called me tips because I don't get my tips over the net, when I blocked, and it was just. But I played and I loved it, and but then after volleyball, it's funny because then I when I was like 13, I worked in a really powerful gym here. I mean, it was a grungy little hole in the wall on Garden Street, downtown, seedy, but the best powerlifters in the world worked out there. So right after volleyball, it was funny. I got into this very big powerlifting, bodybuilding. I got to like 200 pounds. I got to watch the best of the best, train. And so I kind of had this perfect pedigree to become a trainer because I did the volleyball things, the team sports, and then I did the whole bodybuilding, powerlifting. I got to watch, I was always intrigued by the science and how they did it, what rep range they used and how much they rested and, all that stuff. So I was always super intrigued with that. And then my sister was a world-class runner. I mean, she ran like a 31, 32, 10K. She won NCAA's 10,000 meter one year. And then one day I go, I know I could beat you. And, of course she beat me by like 5 minutes. And then literally 5 months later, I did my first, I did the Honolulu Marathon and I ran like 2:35 or 6. I'm like, okay, I have definitely, obviously have some talent in this. And so I just completely switched gears and I did an Ironman like 4 months later. So within a year, I did an Ironman. I did New Zealand and I was 10th place and I was like 9:04, 9:03. And that's when I go, okay, I can do this. But, of course I did every wrong thing. And, I'd run like 100 miles. I'd take the train. I'd ride to San Diego, take the train home, swim with the age group kids. I was crazy. I mean, like Mike said, I was crazy. Like I would just I would just pick the strongest, like Eric Check. He was a cyclist at the time. I would just ride with him, whatever he did. And then I'd pick the best runner and do whatever he did. And then I'd swim with the age group because, and of course I had some really good races and I'd crash and burn for a few months and then come back. It was that constant thing. And so, but I had some really good results, but watching especially how these Norwegians and the guys are training, I'm like, oh God, I could have been so much better if I did it right. It was a wild west back then. We didn't know what we were doing. But I had a lot of fun. I'll tell you that. I mean, with the journey, incredible. Just a test to see how far I could go. And we just didn't know what we were doing. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Sometimes I think the guys get too caught up in all that stuff and they lose the fun we had and just like it was so, unique back then.
Yeah, the best adventures, in my opinion, were these long distance bike rides. And I used to love to do the one way, like you described. And, you're just riding down the California coast. I used to ride home. I lived in the San Fernando Valley when I was a student at UCSB when I switched from the running teams to triathlon. Right. And I'd just show up at my house and it was like the greatest feeling that I could cover that distance on my bike,
Yeah, we used to we'd go to San Diego, we'd go to like Soup Plantation and just like,
like who are these
take
guys?
our backpacks and take like 500 muffins and put them in the backpack.
Oh yeah.
Get on the train and then go home. But it was fun though. I miss those days actually.
So wait, you're saying that you came out of the bodybuilding gym at 200 pounds and then what was the timeline?
Yeah,
there?
and I lost. Well, what happened? I mean, it was funny because I was huge. I was squatting ridiculous amounts of weight and then I just followed these once I get into something I kind of go 100% and I went full on in for like 3 years and then I don't know, it was my sister, that whole the endurance thing just intrigued me and I just went full for it. And what happened is I had from a kid I had this jaw that kind of went to one side and so I had to have like jaw surgery and my mouth wired shut for 8 weeks and I lost like 60 pounds. And I mean, from being bodybuilding, I was just freaking shredded. I mean, I'd run down the street, like down Cabrillo and people look at me like, you're free, cause I had like road map veins in my stomach. And this was just coming, it was like I cut for a contest or something. And then I just got addicted, just from there, I just started watching like Ironmans on TV and I just, okay. And then I just completely switched gears to that world, after that.
So you got the weight off through the jaw surgery, you're
Well,
saying?
I mean, it just kicked it in. It was like, when Lance had cancer and lost all that weight, it was like,
Yeah, right.
I went from like 200 pounds to like 160, in like 8 or 10 weeks. I was training a lot too. I was running and, it was all new to me. When you first start training, your body's not used to it. And my metabolism just went crazy. And I was only 21, 22. So that I had the age on my side, but it was crazy, how fast I got, how quick I just got good at it. Other than, the injuries I got from trying to train like a pro in the first, 4 months.
Out of the gate.
Yeah.
Is there any attributes that transfer over from putting in that hard work in powerlifting and getting super strong and then trying to be an endurance athlete?
Yeah. I mean, I was always one that lifted weights I always believed in it. I always thought it helped me for strength. Like when I did ultra running, anything like that, I could outrun anyone in the strong stuff, like going up Figaro Mountain or something like that, 110 miles into the ride. I just always felt that strength helped me. Some people will argue against it, but for me, I always lift. I loved lifting. I just felt it kept me, gave me a little bit of an edge. It kept me healthy because it kept me balanced. I
Mm.
felt in my body, like, in my, I never got, really a lot of imbalances. I lifted always. I never stopped. I tapered, of course, and, before
Mm.
races, but I always believed in strength training just from the get go, even, still, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of great articles, books, experts talking about how beneficial it is, but I think the challenge is to balance everything because you only have so much energy. And I had a huge struggle with that because I knew it was important, but sometimes you just bump up against your maximum capability to put in work every
Yeah,
day.
but I always, from those powerlifting guys, there was a few doctor, teach guy, really good physiologists that, always taught me, to never train to failure, keep the reps
Mm.
low. You do all this endurance already. Don't go out there and make it, don't go in and do, 500 squats and then go on the leg press and do 100 reps. And he goes, that I learned from a young age, that's bullshit. Like I would go and do like, 5 sets of 3 hex, deadlifts, or I do a few, I would just keep the reps low and never train to failure. And I always could recover pretty well. It's the
Mm.
times when you go like that hypertrophy 10 to 12 reps and you grind it out. That's where the next day you just have all that, that lactic acid and soreness and you just can't recover.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, people always, like, what do you mean? Like 3 reps makes you big. I'm like, no, you're quite wrong. It's the opposite. Like you go 10 reps, you're going to get big. You keep it 3 reps, it's much more nervous system. And then you're not going to get, I always wanted to be as strong as I could be without putting on a lot of mass. And I think that 5 reps, 6 reps is kind of that crossover where you're going to get some hypertrophy if you go in those ranges. But if I kept them like 3 to 4 and just worked on my technique, I always did a lot of swings and kettlebell swings, stuff that I knew what would make me big. I didn't go and do
Mm.
incline press for 10 reps super slow or anything like that. I knew what would I mean, because I have a body that can get big if I'm not careful. I have to watch. I mean, I can get, if I wanted to get big, I could. I just knew which techniques would get me too big in my upper body, because I can get super barrel chested if I'm not careful.
Yeah, it also occurs to me that for the endurance athlete, you're trying to develop complementary skills that'll support your performance. And if you go in the gym and do a bunch of reps, it still seems today that a lot of endurance athletes just keep that endurance
No,
mentality,
I don't get
whatever
it.
they're doing.
I mean, I just laugh when I see that. I'm like, what do you mean? Like CrossFit for endurance athlete, I think is not smart. I mean, I'm not nothing against CrossFit, but like going in and doing those 20-minute metcons and your heart rate's
Mm.
like, why are you're just, I mean, you're just wrecking it's one more stress your body has to go through and not recover from your bike rides and whatever else your main thing is. It's the same for, I think it's the same for any athlete. The baseball players I train, anyone,
Mm.
their sport is their sport. You can't make the training another sport to recover from. So
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, so I try to keep it, there's times of the year, like the baseball players will come in here in like a couple of weeks and I can work them really hard for like a month or two because
Mm.
they're not playing baseball. That's one time a year I can really, hammer them out and get some really good strength for, because they play so long and so many games that give them a huge base of strength, and they can carry it all the way through the season if they just maintain during the season. I mean, with little. So if you get that big, just like an endurance athlete, if you get that big base of fitness or cardio, or whether it's cardio strength, you can do very little in the season and still maintain.
Well, it's especially important at the elite level when your main objective is to make it through the season. So like an NBA guy, imagining someone like that coming in and doing a CrossFit session
No,
during or anywhere near the season is just a recipe for breakdown, it seems like.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, I've done it so long now. It's just, if you make mistakes, you kind of write it down, you kind of just figure out, and over the years, I've just kind of formed like a formula that I just go, okay, this has worked, this hasn't worked, this, and I know what kind of volume they can take just by, I mean, an athlete can walk in the gym and I know if they're tired. Very easy to see. Just by their attitude when they're warming up. You can just see if they're tired. You can just look at them and go, okay, no, you're off this. You can see it when they, a lot of them try to fake it, but you can't fake, they yell at you when you tell them to do one little thing or something. I mean, you can just see it. So I'm pretty good at knowing, okay, I push people, to their, their potential, but I don't, if you go over it, it's worthless training. So I've learned, because I used to think, when I first started training people, what do you mean you can't do an Ironman? Everyone should be able to do that. I was just dumb. I was just young. I just trained everyone way too hard. And I've learned over the years, like, okay, more isn't always better. And, Pavel, the kettlebell guy, has become a really good friend of mine. And we talk all the time. And he's really, he's really got me into like a lot of the Russian, he'd always say, hey, why do you think Russian powerlifters last 20 years and Americans last 4 years, won Olympics? Because, the Russians never train, they've rarely trained to failure. They train low reps that, they train that sweet spot and just do it over and over and over again with good form. They don't get caught up in the, what's hot and what's not, the mass volume training or whatever the catchword of the month is. And they just have that, okay, you build, you rest, and it's, it's the simplicity of it is kind of where it's at if you do it right.
Oh my gosh, these topics are so much more important to me now at age 57 because there's no wiggle room anymore, and you have to learn to do that under the radar strategy, or grease the groove, as Pavel says, rather than just being the blaster, the king of the king of the town. But yeah, so back to your endurance career. Knowing what you know now, or how that played out, you felt like you made some mistakes in the area of overtraining.
Not on my easy rides, easy runs, not going easy enough. I'd say I would always kind of go junkie pace. Too much of that, getting caught up in, okay, I'm going to do a 40-mile recovery, then seeing some guy in the freeway going to Refugio and just like freaking throwing care to the wind and go, this fucking guy's not going to beat me, and then just little stupid stuff like that. That I just, I think I'll jump in this LA marathon 2 weeks before New Zealand. And then, I go there and I'm like, okay, I ran 240, which wasn't that fast for me back then, but I get there 2 weeks and I wonder why I'm like destroyed at New Zealand, So
doing an Ironman 2 weeks after a marathon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just all kind of, the list goes on. I just was, I didn't have a coach. I was always kind of experimenting with myself. I think, like I said, if I had one of those coaches like the Norwegian guys where they say, hey, you're doing this today and this is how much food you're eating, and you got to have 10,000 calories because we're doing this today, and having your energy balance stay all the same. And I think I didn't eat enough a lot of times, and my nutrition wasn't locked on. So I've been really curious about watching what those guys do, and I've listened to all the podcasts, and it's just, they're so spot on with their diet, and they don't want to see veins in their stomach and rip. They look heavy to me, like not heavy, but not like a normal endurance person.
Yeah.
And I love the way they talk about how they want to keep always their energy balance positive. They never let it get low. And that's how how they can train that long. I mean, of course, I think, to me it seems like, I'm guessing, but it seems like the Norwegians took like, like 100 kids or something, bombed them all, and like 5 lasted. Oh, these guys can all take the volume, and then they train them right, and they have a VO2 of 90, and they can put in the volume. That's what's going to happen. I mean, and they have good training now, and their coaches knows exactly their body temperature and what they should eat, and it's amazing now to see how far they've come with all this, these things.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with Blumenfeld performing the way he does, coming in at around 5'9", 170, because he does
Yeah,
not match
no,
the
no,
physique of the extreme
no,
endurance athlete that we've always thought was this fat burning machine and lean and
yeah,
mean. And I'm
no,
wondering, like, we also know that the performance limiter at the most difficult sports like bodybuilding or Tour de France is a lot of times how many calories one can
yeah,
process in a day.
yeah.
Um, and so maybe this guy has transcended our model of fat adapted endurance training, and he must be mainlining a bunch of carbohydrates.
Oh, he is. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm a student of, like, when someone does this well, I'm like, okay, what can I learn? What are they doing that, I
Yeah.
just, not for me, but for people that I train, and I just intrigued by, okay, fuck, there are 10 guys went under 740 or 45 or
Yeah.
under 8. I'm like, that's crazy. What are they doing? Like, the bikes aren't that much better, or, it's not that. So just the way he talked, I've listened to, every podcast they've done probably, and, the eating, and they stay in that positive energy balance. They don't do any massage or any of that stuff, no
Oh,
cold plunges, none of that shit. They just go, okay, sleep and eat, and that's all we need. And I mean, that's pretty much what they do. And it's simple, and they have the formula down. Okay, ride, 10 by 10 minutes at your, this, millimoles of lactate, and they got it down to a site, and they don't, and everyone's different. They have it down and how many calories you need that day. And, can you imagine if you had that? I mean, it would take a lot of the guesswork out of, and then they have like a thermometer up their butt to see what their body temperature is. And, so it's, I can see, like, if you had someone like Lance back in when he was 24 doing that training, he probably would have done the same thing.
mm,
If he had, Lance who could swim, he could run. If he had that kind of, training, and with his talent, I mean, I think he probably could have gone probably
oh,
what these guys
sure.
are doing.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I thought he was going to go busted open when he was
Yeah,
37 or whenever he turned to
yeah, I
triathlon.
think he
And
could have.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, these guys. So you talked about perhaps being underfed when you were
yeah,
trying to do
for
all this
sure.
performance.
I was always a little manorexic when I was racing. I always wanted to be, I want to be super lean, and I want to be, and I would, I would definitely not. There's no way I ate enough. There's no way.
Yeah, probably especially protein, and so
Yeah,
therefore
yeah,
you're catabolic most of the time because you're on the bike
yeah,
seat for 5 hours and pounding the roads for another couple hours.
yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe that's yeah, the lack of veins in the stomach, Blumenfeld's
No,
signature
no,
move.
I'm so intrigued by, and they're pretty open about telling what they do. And it's really interesting to me to hear how they do, because that kind of throws the whole, get fat adapted, ketogenic, because I did that for so long. Like,
Oh, you did?
I did that. I tried, I'm my own experiment. I try everything.
Yeah.
I would, if it become, I want to see, the only thing I haven't tried is the carnivore thing. I haven't done that, but I've done vegan. I've done, I try everything for like a year. I'm like, okay, what, I have to give it a chance. And I look at my blood work, and I kind of go, okay, how do I feel? The keto, I trained too much. It just, I never felt that great doing it. I mean, I could go on 8-hour rides or whatever I wanted to do,
Mm,
as long as I kept it aerobic. But if I, tried to race my motocross guys on the Versa Climber, I
yeah.
was like a nightmare.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the power. And I didn't mind eating that way. I have no problem. Same with, even when I did
Mm,
vegan for a year, I was like, I don't mind eating this way. I can kind of switch over to whatever. My body's pretty adapted. I never had any stomach problems, or
mm,
my weight. I never got that much leaner on it, one or the other. I just was
mm.
always kind of. I mean, everything. Now I'm kind of in that middle where I eat probably. I'm protein centric. I probably eat 150, 160 grams a day. And then I kind of adjust my carbs, kind of like the Norwegian, like depending on if I work out a lot, I eat a lot of sweet potatoes. And, I'm a pretty good eater. I don't eat a lot of junk. I don't eat
Yeah.
bars or goos or anything like that. But I do eat, quinoa and like sweet potatoes and a lot of some fruit. And, I get, if I'm doing, when I have the moto guys here, like they're coming next week, I have to work out a ton. Like, I mean, those guys are fit. I mean, talking about those guys are
Yeah,
incredibly
people
fit.
don't even realize, like,
No,
the
I mean, their
person
heart rates,
operating the motorcycle is
no,
some of
they
the
did
fittest
two
guys around.
35-minute motos. and
Yeah.
their heart rate's 93-4% the entire race. And they don't realize those guys are fit as hell. And so when they come, I have to take them. It's a one time a year. I actually have to. It's like a race for me. I have to train for them to come. So I have
Wow.
to like, oh shit, they're coming next week. I got to like do all this Versa climber, and I got to climb Gibraltar, and I got to be able to, to hang with them. And so it's like it's like for 6 weeks I've been doing like it's almost like I'm training for a race just to have those guys come. So because they're 22 years old,
Oh
23
yeah.
at the
Watch
top of
out.
their game. So I'm like, at the beginning they're in their beginning season, but it's great because by 6 weeks that I can't, they're just dusting me. But at the beginning I can make them suffer at the beginning. And but they lift weight, they do everything. That's a sport that's I think the fitness of those guys. They have to be strong, they gotta be stable, they gotta be super fit aerobically. It's a intense, and then you can die at any minute if you do something
Mm.
wrong. So you got the adrenaline factor there too. So that's that's one of my favorite sports to train, just because there's so many variables involved in their training that they have to, mental, physical,
Mm.
everything.
Yeah, definitely all around athlete, but especially with that endurance that I don't think the audience appreciates when
No,
they're absorbing
no,
the
they
impact every second on the bike. And
yeah,
yeah, I know
yeah,
there's a motor, people, but this is probably as
no,
hard as the Tour de France.
no, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so the diet stuff, as people who've listened to my show know, I've been doing a lot of recent reflections, and one of them is the idea that doing things like keto, restricting carbs, restricting the time periods that you eat,
Hmm.
has to be counted as a stress factor to the
100%.
body, as does training. And so when you're stacking those together, I feel like a lot of people are possibly erring in, overloading the stress mechanisms of the body accordingly.
I agree, especially if you're doing cold plunge and all that stuff. Like you said, all of that just adds up. And I like this stuff, but I've never done it that much. But I did do time restricted eating for a long time, and I don't know. I just now I feel better when I just eat. When I feed myself more, because I'm busy all day. I mean, I'm handing
Mm.
people weights. I'm running around. I never sit.
Yeah.
I'm always handing people weights and putting weights on bars and taking them off, and then I work out myself and I work out with clients. So just like I said, I'm come full circle. I'm like, okay, I just keep my protein high and I just eat, my calories depending on, what I'm doing that day, or that week, whatever it is.
Yeah, and it's also, of course, you're gonna it's sensible to time extra carbs with extra workout, but then we got to think about, well, the day after you had a big day with the moto guys is another great
Yeah,
opportunity to overload and make sure that you
yeah,
recover.
yeah. So yeah, the eating is I have a pretty, my energy's been pretty good. So I definitely eating more has been, and I didn't gain any weight really either, which I thought. I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm eating like 1,000 more calories a day just because I'm not restricting, and I don't. I eat super healthy. I don't eat anything. I'm not a chip, and I don't eat junk food. Uh, but I just eat more volume of food. And I'm feeling better. At my at my age. I'm the same exact age. I'm 57,
Right on.
and of course, we'll talk probably about this, but your training. I've had to change my training a lot because I see where I'm headed. I want to be 80 years old and like be I always tell my wife, I'm like, when because we used to go to like Sun Valley or Mammoth, and I'd see all these old grizzly guys in the gym, like 80, buff and tan and like wrinkled, and I'm like, I want to be. That's what I want. That's what I want to be when I'm retired. And I'm 80. I want to be like a ski resort, just hiking and working out all day, and I want to be able to. If I would have kept training like I was, like I still can't believe there's people that we both know that are still racing Ironmans like than
Mm,
when we raced.
yeah.
And I'm like, how did they do? I could, I love the Ironman, the whole thing, but you couldn't pay me to do one of those again right now. There's no way. Like, I don't have any urge to do that at all.
Yeah, I don't think it correlates at all with total comprehensive functional full body fitness nor longevity. And there's
No.
probably a way to do it with minimizing the damage that that you described from
Yeah.
your younger years and I described. But At the same token, it feels to me, and maybe this is a transition where we can converse about all the different ways you can train, but it seems like um, active people can go get that A+ in cardio really easily when you add
Yeah.
up the hiking, the biking to the
Hmm.
farmer's market, the proper steady state cardio workout that you do if you're interested in that stuff, and the stuff you do in the gym and the sprinting you do on the beach.
Yeah.
All that stuff counts toward the A+. But then
Yeah.
we have to talk about resistance load and functioning of the joints and the connective tissue and just preserving muscle mass.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I always tell people like, okay, if you want to do an Ironman, doing one, great. Bucket list. I'm happy to train you for fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Go do it.
We should
But
rename it Ironman Bucket
but
List Organization. Yeah, they wouldn't
training,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. But my training now, I mean, I love. I mean, I still like. I don't think maybe other than you, no one likes working out more than I do. I every day I wake up, I can't wait to fucking train.
Wow.
I love. I mean, every bit of it still, and I think clients see that in me, and I think they kind of feed off it a lot because they see I just can't wait. As soon as they leave the gym, they see me strip my clothes up, and I'm like, fuck, I'm taking my dog for a run or sprints or whatever. But definitely had to slow down. I mean, I
Mm.
do a lot of low end stuff, but I do a lot of a lot of alactic type training, like sprints on the bike, like 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off, or I'll do it for 40 minutes sometimes. Like 10 on, 40 off. I can hold about 700, 800 watts, and I 50 seconds. My heart rate never goes, above 130-ish or so. And I wake up the next day and I feel incredible. I mean,
Wow.
I wouldn't start at 40 minutes, of course, but I do a lot of those. I'll do one day of those on the bike, one day, on the beach, hill sprints, or I keep everything. A couple days a week, I do really short sprint. I just like sprint. I mean, for me, I mean, I have like two fast twitch muscle fibers in my body, maybe. So I like doing it because it's my week, and I feel good doing it, and I feel good the next day. And I still do a lot. I mean, they call it zone 2 now, but
Yeah, who
you
named
know,
that, Peter? Was that
I
you?
have no
Did you
fucking
make
idea,
that
but
up?
it
I mean, what the
irritates
hell,
me.
man?
It irritates me because the more
Yeah,
everyone goes, I'm in my zone 2 today. I'm like, oh
yeah,
fuck.
yeah. I want
Okay,
to
we did
find
this
that
in
guy.
like 1980, with Moffatone. We did, you
Yeah.
know, I don't even know, whatever, low, Moff, whatever you call it. But I mean, I can still hold 250 watts at that heart rate, which is pretty good. I try to keep that up, and then I do one day a week with I have this group of Second Journey. The class is called Second Journey. They're
Mm.
all a bunch of guys our age that are former athletes, super fit. We did stuff in the gym, and then we always one day a week we have like just a acid bath race, and we get like four guys on a team. We just race on the Versa climbers or the bikes or whatever, and it's just 20, 30 minutes of just mayhem. And we all and that's the one time a week I get after it, but that's it. I mean, that's pretty much
Huh.
it. I mean, and I've stayed really fit. I mean, I can climb Gibraltar. I mean, I can do all that stuff. I just keep it. I just don't do that much long endurance anymore. Maybe once every couple of weeks I'll go like across the ridge up Gibraltar and over, and then 3 or 4 hours, but not every week. And I've gotten into that rucking. One of Michael
Mm.
Easter, my friend, sent me one of those backpacks, and I've been going, 3 hour hikes in the hills with that thing on. It's incredible. It's hard. It's like doing walking lunges, for 40 minutes up a hill. The trails in Santa Barbara, they're steep. There's, so you go back there for 3 hours, and it's funny because my heart rate never goes up really. It gets, it'll get to 120 or so,
Mm.
but the muscular part of it is hard. It's one of it's so different. Like when I first started doing it, I got sore in places I never thought, like
Mm.
way high in the glutes, but I've had no problem with my back or knees or anything. So it's one of those things I've kind of just discovered, and I'm like, oh, I kind of like this. It's fun.
I'm sure you're spending a lot of time doing resistance exercises in the gym too.
Oh yeah, lifting. That's probably my number one thing I do. I will never. I'd pick lifting over cardio any day for me now. I like lifting. I mean, I like to. You know, I always tell people like if you're losing body mass, you're basically dying. I mean, I mean, it's like the less. And I've seen all these studies now where like you know body mass and cognitive is kind of correlated. Like the
Mm.
more body mass you test, been reading on PubMed some stuff on that and other stuff. And I
Yeah,
think Peter Attia
muscle
just said
mass,
something.
muscle strength, muscle mass correlated with brain function.
Yeah.
It's a pretty scary one if you don't care about this
No.
enough. You're
No.
not a gym rat. Okay, fine. How do you like using your brain? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
that's been I just love lifting. I ever since I've been a kid, I've loved lifting, and I just love the science of it and trying to keep myself strong. And I'm not fancy. I do probably 5 or 6 exercises. I do pull-ups, I do push-ups, bench press, swings, deadlifts. Sometimes I'll do in warm-ups. I'll do a lot of different moves like side lunging and more functional stuff in my
mm,
warm-up just to do different moves. But my main lifts pretty much stay the same all the time. I just keep them strong. I always want to be able to deadlift, 1.5 my body weight, 350 pounds. I mean, I'm like 160. So if I can deadlift 350 or so, I'm happy on a regular bar, not a hex bar. I'm
that's
kind of
double, huh? Is
yeah.
that a
So I can, and I just like to be able, do 10 pull-ups and I've learned a lot with pull-ups though. A lot of guys can't handle it. A lot of my older guys, I fucked up so many times and done pull-ups and
oh,
they
yeah,
get,
yeah.
tendonitis and so I'm careful with people on pull-ups, just because because once they get that, it's really hard to get rid of.
Oh my
The
gosh. Yeah, it's a terrible. I had it from golfing and
yeah.
tennis
So
elbow. I couldn't do pull-ups for a long
no,
time. Yeah,
yeah,
it's amazing. But it seems like a very functional and important skill to develop, but that ramping up is something
yeah.
that's
You gotta
super
be real.
delicate.
So now I always start my older guys with like a band, using a band to help them. You
Yeah,
know, just and
yeah.
then I think it's like anything. You got to get your tendons have to get strong enough to be able to handle. So I have them just do like 2 or 3 reps, and then even if they could do 7, I'm like, just stop at 3 because you're gonna start using shit you shouldn't go over that. And then
Mm.
over time, they can, I've learned just, from being dumb and say, oh, let's try to do, 100 pull-ups and you just sit there until you do 100. It's just dumb. That's the recipe for disaster. But lifting
Unless
has been,
you're
I love lifting. I just, like I said, our friend Tom Hodge, him.
yeah,
He just rails me because he just thinks I'm like this gym rat,
he loves being out there all day doing these crazy extreme, even over
No,
age
I know.
50, he's
I'm
doing
like,
some amazing stuff.
I know.
Yeah.
I call him the walking free radical.
Well, that's interesting. You described that you have your go-to favorite exercises and you're not obsessed with variation because we've had this notion in fitness where you got to confuse your muscles, otherwise you're going to level off and stagnate. And I'm thinking back to Jack LaLanne when he
Yeah,
did 1,000. What did he do? 1,000 sit-ups and 1,000 push-ups
every
before
day.
8 a.m. every
Yeah.
day. And it's like he wasn't confusing anything. He was just knocking out 1,000 of each. I
No, but
don't think he had
I'll
any
change it
problem.
up. Like, I'll go from 4 weeks of like front squats on a slant board to 4 weeks of Zercher squats, holding here.
Hmm.
Then I'll go deadlifts, traditional deadlifts, hex bar. I'll switch it up, So, same but different, I call it. It's same but a little just a little different, And of course the load range and the how you load it is big, a big
Mm.
factor of how you see the strain. I mean, if you do 3 sets of 10 deadlifts, it's much different than if you do 5 sets of 2. I mean,
Mm.
it's a big difference. So sometimes I'll go in a little higher. I mean, I'll switch it up. I tend to keep the same thing, for 4 or 5 weeks. I don't really vary it that much, and then I'll switch it up every, cycle. I just don't think, like, I don't agree with people that come in and just they think, oh, do you want results or do you want cute? Like, what do you want? Like, I mean,
Uh,
if you want cute, I can make every workout different and it's fun and it looks good on Instagram. But if you want to get strong and actually get somewhere, you got to do the same thing and you got to learn how to tension your body and lock in. I mean,
mm.
it's a skill, and as you can see people doing a deadlift, and okay, that guy looks really locked in, and then it's like a tennis stroke. You can see really bad ones, and guys in the
Yeah.
gym. I mean, I'm still learning things about deadlifts. Oh shit, I didn't know. Just pushing your big toe in the ground a little more,
Mm.
and like pushing through the ground a little harder, like it's like you're pushing away from just little tiny cues that make.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I love about strength training is you're always figuring out stuff. But I always feel like I know this much, and I mean, I have my basic principles, but it's like, okay, there's always so much more you can learn on everything.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
sign of a truly elite practitioners realizing how little you know. And I feel that way about diet because I've been obsessed with it
Oh
and
my
writing books,
God.
and then
I
um,
mean,
wake up one day and realize, I'm rethinking everything
no,
and
I
changing
know. Same
course.
thing.
Yeah.
This whole listening to the Norwegian thing just fucking threw me for a loop. I'm like, oh, fuck. And then I started eating more and getting, and thinking about that, keeping my energy balance positive. And I'm like, oh my God, like, why didn't I think about this before? I was
Yeah.
just worried about how lean I looked,
Yeah.
instead of how do I feel? Like, how do I feel in the gym? And, how do I, how am I performing? So like I said, you learn little tidbits, and I think that's why people probably love you, because you admit, like, okay, I tried this and I thought that was it, but there might be a better way out there that I can do. And that's I love that. People just follow on your journey. That's what people like about me. It's
Mm.
like, they'll like, I'll say, okay, here, we're gonna try this workout here, I've been playing with this, let's try this. And especially, but with the CEO, back to like the training, like the CEO guys, you got to keep it simple. Their lives, I can't say to them, okay, ice bath in the morning, do this, do that. If I can get them to do some low end cardio on their own, some weights, and then meditation has become a big thing in my
Mm.
tool. But it's funny because it came like right before COVID. I was in LA. I had a gym in LA before COVID, and within 1 week, Headspace, the guys that run Headspace, came in and asked me to train him. And Joe Dispenza, one of the biggest, he lives here. And within 1 week, and I'm like, okay, the universe is telling me something here, and so I started working with both of them, and I'm really close friends with Joe. He lives here.
Mm.
And he talked me into going in one of his week-long meditation centers, and it literally changed my life. Like, literally, like, I mean, now I'll pick meditation almost over a second workout. I mean, it's just
Wow.
I've slept better. I mean, I'm more centered in my brain. Everything, it's changed me. Like, I don't want to sound like a hoodoo guru, like a woo woo, but it did. I'm just saying that. I mean, I'm a guy that can't shut his brain off. That's always moving. Full ADD. Like, always. Can't sit still. Always. Trying to move. Like, oh shit, I got a cancellation. Oh, I can go on the bike for 20 minutes. That was just me. But he just kept saying, hey, come, you got to come. And then I finally went, and it was like, oh my God, wow, okay. Because one day we meditated 5 hours straight, and it felt like 30 minutes. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay. So now I just use his stuff, and I go I work, and when I close the gym, I just go in this room, and 30 minutes I just do this, one of his things. And it's and for the CEO guys, the number one thing I see is they don't sleep well. They fall asleep, and then they all wait. A lot of them wake up at like 3 in the morning. They can't
Really?
shut
A
the sleep off.
CEO attribute, huh?
Oh, 100%. I see that across the board with a lot of them. And so, with them, you got to look at their lifestyle and go, okay, I can usually figure them out pretty quick. Like, how much time are they going to put into this, and what's going to throw them overboard? And I got to just kind of form a program on what I think they can, reading them is very important. Now, some guys, if I gave them like something one of my other guys did, they would run for the hills. They'd go, fuck this. I'm
Mm.
not, this is ridiculous. So I can't do the ice baths and the peptide shots, or any of that stuff. It's like, okay, let's eat well, exercise. Get your and they just need a roadmap. And if you give it to them, they'll do really well with it. And they'll lose weight, and they'll I the CEO thing, that's kind of become my net. I love that part of it, because it's you can change their whole life. Athlete, you get like this much. You're trying to
Mm.
change this much, but these guys, you can completely change their whole outlook on how they look at their executive function, their energy, everything. And once you give them that roadmap and you show them how much better they feel, they kind of run with it.
Oh my gosh, they've already conquered so many other challenges, and then they have a starting point with you to, discover things that are truly important about, improving their overall health status and,
Yeah,
perspective,
I mean, you've
energy.
seen it. You can't, you've done a lot for this diet. So I mean, you look at them and you go, okay, let's just drink 8 glasses of water a day first. Just that, anything. Okay, let's cut this. Just slow. You know, change. Like if I went and said, okay, no this, no that, you can't ever have that. They can do it for like 2 weeks, but then they'll they won't do it.
Yeah.
So it's just finding it's a puzzle to find what, now not everyone, not everyone's the same. You got to figure out what makes them tick, and like, okay, how am I gonna slide into this guy's psyche and make him do what he needs to do to get healthy.
Get some market share in the busy daily schedule
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
business leader. So tell us how you dreamed up Platinum Fitness and the unique operation that you have there. And you talked about some of your clientele being the high performing business type, but then you're also working with a lot of elite athletes and how that all blends together.
Yeah, I seem to have three. Well, Platinum, we I opened that in like 1997 about, and we started in Montecito, and it just kind of, you know, I was going to go to physical therapy school, and one of my clients that was training talks me out of it and goes, "Hey, this is your passion. I can see it." Just so
Wow.
we rented a building, we opened it, and I started training a lot of people. It was great because I would have been a little bit of fish out of water if I just did endurance and I didn't have that strength background.
Mhm.
I think having that and the volleyball really put me ahead of a lot of people
Mm.
because I knew. I mean, I studied those powerlifter guys. Like, I mean, I was a sponge. I'd stay in there I was like 13, 14, 15. And I would
Wow.
just stay in there and just watch every little thing they did. And so I learned a lot so I kind of was ahead of the curve on I already gotten through a lot of the bullshit in the training. I kind of knew what was legit and what wasn't. And then Lance came into town, like doing the tour, and I met him through a mutual friend, and we were like kindred souls, and we started training, and trained him when he was in the off season, and then he came, when he was right before he did his second coming, when he did the tour the second time through in 2009 maybe,
Mm.
and he lived here for a while, and then he started bringing me to, he introduced me to, at the time he was like Jesus, we'd go anywhere and it was like, partying of the seas, and so he introduced me a lot of very big wigs in LA, and I started driving to LA. I was always pretty. I was very ambitious. I always wanted to go higher than just the trainer in Santa Barbara. So I took him up on all these people in LA, very big wig CEOs and athletes, and so movie stars and singers, and I lived that world for like 10 years.
Mm.
And then I had the gym up here still, and it just became, I just got a lot of, trainers. I always handpicked my kind of guys, and we had a kind of like a brand, and it just kind of
Yeah.
evolved and became, what it is today, where it's just kind of, stuff we've been doing, started a long time ago, and just kind of, it's still evolving. Like I said, it's not, so it's always kind of going a little different ways, and people like that.
You talk about, yeah, you were so ambitious and driven and grinding it down to LA. Now, do you feel like you're in a more reflective phase in your
No,
career?
not yet. I'm still no, because the thing is, every single wealthy person has moved to Santa Barbara, like literally. I mean, so many. It's like the hot spot to live right now.
Mm.
Everyone has moved up here. So a lot of my clients, and I put all that time into LA, and so anytime anyone moves from LA or anywhere, they hear my name first. And I'm like, oh, I can't like give up this guy. This guy's like, look at who this guy is. And so I'm one that has a hard time saying no. So I'm still working, 10-hour days, a lot of the times. But I mean, I love what I do. I mean,
Mm.
my wife just goes, Peter, you basically just hang out with your friends all day, you know. But I'm making my friends better. I mean, I like. I mean, I think. I mean, people just know I care. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, if I take someone on, I glom on, and I'm like, I really care about what they're doing, and I want to see them, get better. That's to a fault sometimes, and I'll be at a party and someone will say, "Oh, I can't get," and I'm like, "Don't get away, get away," I don't go talk, because I want to go. Oh, I know exactly what you should do,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you can only, as you can only help so many people. You can't glom on to anything, or else I'll start spreading myself way too thin, and
Mm.
then it does nobody good. So
Wow.
I need to always learn to take some time out for myself and do some stuff, or else that balance is. I've always had trouble with finding that balance of work and family and the whole thing.
Well, it's great that you love what you're doing. I think
All right, yeah.
young listeners with career ambitions can pick up some great tips, which is, your passion comes through and your total immersion into this. That's the sign of a meaningful, rich life. Even if you do feel like you're too busy at times or whatever, we can always recalibrate. But, to wake up every day, can't wait to do your own workouts and to train other people. You're in the right mix, man. That's awesome.
No, and I always tell the trainers, like, people feed off your energy and your intensity. Like, if you go in there, go, oh, 2 reps, okay, go do that one. I mean, they're gonna be like that. And I found myself, even when I'm tired at the end of the day, sometimes I have to go in the bathroom and slap myself in the face because fuck, these guys are paying you a lot of money. Get out there and fucking give it to them. Like,
Yeah.
because give them your energy because if you just go out there and you're just kind of go do like it's just they feed off me or whoever they're who's training with. I mean, I can feel it. Like I really know that. Like if I'm not on, they're not on in their workout either.
Yeah.
So it's I
Especially
always tell
in,
trainers that's a big they feed off what how you are and how you they know what they always want to know, oh, what'd you do this weekend, they always want to know like what I did and like, now why are you sprinting up that hill so many times or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm just trying out this new Swedish alactic protocol or
Mm.
whatever, you know so
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I think that's true when you're at the dental hygienist, but it's especially true when there's a lot of momentum against being healthy, active, fit lifestyle. And so, some people have trouble getting motivated. They need the trainer to kind of perform and to model, how awesome everything is, even if it's your seventh client of the day and your own energy is getting a little drained.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I have a not what keeps me I like the mentorship part. I have a nonprofit for high school kids that want to play in college and a lot of like Latino kids or a lot of kids that can't afford training. I mean I trained them a lot, back, 8 years ago. I mean I've done probably, fun it's funny for the first time I have a kid of a kid.
Wow.
So, it's like, oh, he walked in like, oh no, no. But anyway, so it's it's a nonprofit where the kids just, I was sick of chasing money from the parents. I was just like, they couldn't afford it. I mean, $300 or whatever to, some families was like a lot. So I just, a lot of my wealthy clients will give, scholarships to all these kids.
Mm.
And I love the mentorship because I see them all the way through high school and I get to watch them in college. And that's probably one of I give about 2 hours, an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, for the high school kids in the afternoon. It's probably one of the most rewarding things I did because you can change those kids are, you give them some purpose and some structure. And I always say no assholes allowed. Like you can't be, I always try to make them, okay, you guys be good human beings first, because so to be here, I'm giving my time to you. If you're
Mm.
not giving it, you're not giving it your all. You're not coming here to goof around
Yeah.
because it's fun. And so that's become a big part of my, you know, I mean, as I get older, like you said, I like to do more of that, where I can give, I've done enough now where I can give away some time and do stuff with these kids.
Right on, Peter. You're doing great stuff up there. I can't wait to drop in and visit you when I'm ready for one of your
No, I
legendary
need to sprint
workouts.
with you. I need to get
Yeah.
dropped by you so I can see what the level of a 57-year-old really should be.
What's so fun is like, like you described, you have two fast twitch muscle fibers in your body. And of course, we were built for endurance. That's what we
Yeah.
drifted to as young people. But now I'm competing in stuff that I might not be genetically adapted to. My son watched me at a high jump meet and he goes, Dad, you don't look like any of those Olympic high jumpers. I'm like, yeah, you're right. But it's just a challenge. And I think we need those
No,
throughout
I
life,
love it.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, that's that do something that scares you. I like that, because the
Mm.
the sprinting and all that stuff is fun for me because I'm so bad at it, but I like it.
Yeah, right on. Okay, so how do we connect with you and learn about what you're doing at Platinum Fitness?
The website, platinumfitnesssummerlin.com, or I'm platinum SB Platinum Fitness on Instagram. I'm not a big social media. I try to be, but it's tough
Yeah.
it's tough to do that world. I think I posted once in yesterday in 2 years or something, but it's more, I anyone that comes to Santa Barbara, I always say, hey, just come by the gym and just, come. I have a great gym. I have a little Airbnb upstairs. I'm like, hey, just come and work out if you're in town. Like, I mean, I'm pretty much down there by myself. Like, anyone who wants to come in to do cardio or work out, just stop
Right
by.
on. It's a destination. You got to do it.
Yeah.
Tourism attraction. Yeah. Peter Park, everybody. Thanks for listening. Dun, dun, dun. I hope you enjoyed this episode and encourage you to check out the Primal Endurance Mastery course at primalendurance.fit. This is the ultimate online educational experience where you can learn from the world's great coaches and trainers, diet, peak performance, and recovery experts, as well as lengthy one-on-one interviews from several of the greatest endurance athletes of all time, not published anywhere else. It's a major educational experience with hundreds of videos, but you can get free access to a mini course with an ebook summary of the Primal Endurance approach and 9 step-by-step videos on how to become a Primal Endurance athlete. This mini course will help you develop a strong basic understanding of this all-encompassing approach to endurance training that includes primal-aligned eating to escape carbohydrate dependency and enhance fat metabolism, building an aerobic base with comfortably paced workouts, strategically introducing high-intensity strength and sprint workouts, emphasizing rest, recovery, and annual periodization, and finally cultivating an intuitive approach to training instead of the usual robotic approach of fixed weekly workout schedules. Just head over to primalendurance.fit and learn all about the course and how we can help you go faster and preserve your health while you're at it.